Hello, I've kindly been invited to this year's British Book Awards, which is quite a big fancy event, which is why I'm all gussied up. And these are awards which not only celebrate the best books from the past year, but also the whole industry around that, from the agents to the publishers to the booksellers, which is a really lovely thing to see the whole industry, celebrate what they do and how they bring us all these amazing books. Because it's not, honestly, it is not the most lucrative industry. So a lot of people that work in publishing do so, out of passion for books, rather than, to just make money. I mean, that is definitely a part of it as well, but also, just for the love of books. So it's really wonderful to have like a big fancy party, and I thought it would be fun to bring you along to experience that as well, and to have some chat with people. Hope maybe I'll be able to talk to an author or two while I'm there, and also so that we can discover together who are the winners of this year's awards. And so I have the website up for the awards up, and so I'm just want to quickly look through some of the shortlisted categories, the ones that I'm really interested in. So one of the main ones is fiction, of course, because I primarily read fiction. So there's Sally Rooney's new novel, which I did absolutely love, and which is such a big deal that there was a whole big publicity thing around that book as well. Cloud Cuckoo Land, which I've not read yet, but which I'm really interested in reading. Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff, which I haven't even heard of before this or now, because this is a fantasy novel, and I don't read all that much fantasy, but it sounds really fun, and I have been wanting to dip into a bit more fantasy. So yeah, that would be good to read at some point. There's Clare and the Sun, which I just absolutely loved. Oh, so good. Sorrow and Bliss, which is really wonderful to see how there's been so much word of mouth around this book, and so much love from readers for it, that they're really recommending it to so many other people. So it's also listed for this year's Women's Prize for fiction. And there's also this novel called The Passenger, which is actually a much older novel, which sort of got lost, but has been rediscovered and just published in English for the very first time. A whole story about World War II and the process of being from the point of view of somebody that was caught up in that whole experience, and then he wrote a novel about that experience. And so that's really interesting category. There's also Page Turner, which is interesting that they designate it specifically as Page Turner, and I've not read as many of these books. There's Small Pleasures by Clare Chambers, which I made a whole video centered around how much I loved reading most of this novel until the very end, which I had big issues with and which I really didn't like. But the actual substance of the novel itself and most of the story was so good. And there's The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper, which I'd heard about, but I've not read, and but been meaning to read. There's also the debut category in fiction, and there's some really great titles on here, including Assembly by Natasha Brown, which has also been nominated for a number of awards, and Luster by Raven Leilani, which it's such a fun and creative book that goes in so many wild directions and is also so meaningful. Mrs. Death, which I actually didn't realize was a debut by Selena Godin, but that I have been wanting to read. Also Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson, which is such a beautiful love story and such a meaningful tale about a young black man living in South London and the experience of that. And also She Who Became the Sun, which I've been wanting to read. I've had a copy of for a while, and has also been quite a popular novel that a lot of people have been talking about. So yeah, quite a few good titles. There's also nonfiction narrative, which I'm quite interested in, even though I've only read one of the books on this list, Empire of Pain. So good, such a fascinating exploration of the Sackler family and their dynasty of being involved in the pharmaceutical industry and creating this drug called Oxycontin, which has sort of wreaked havoc through society. So yeah, such a good book. My partner is reading it at the moment, and yeah, just absolutely loved it. Miriam Margolases, who's an actress and this very eccentric, like wonderful actress, who's written this memoir called "This Much Is True," and I actually saw her speak from it at give a reading from it and discussion about it at a literary salon. So yeah, that was really good, and I'd be interested in reading that at some point, as well as Empire Land, which I've heard so many good things about. So yeah, those are the main book categories that I'm really excited about. But there's also a whole section of the awards that they call the trade awards, which is really just more for the industry. And I'm not so interested in those categories, but one of the categories I am really excited about is the Independent Bookshop Award, since I'm a reader who loves going into bookshops and experiencing that. So it's so wonderful to see all of these suggestions of bookshops, and I have not been to most of them because most of them are outside of London, and I've visited some bookshops outside of London, but not as many as here in the city itself. But Burley Fisher Books is highlighted here, and I do really adore that bookshop. It's really beautiful. Everyone that works there is really passionate about books and giving great recommendations. And so I don't visit it all that much because it's in a part of the city which is quite far from where I live. So it's not quite as convenient to go to. But yeah, it's really wonderful to see bookshops and booksellers being celebrated in this way. So I'm going to go off to the event and take some footage of it along the way whenever I can, and have a drink, and we can enjoy celebrating books together. So I'm walking through Hyde Park on my way to the venue. So you can see that behind me here. There's some gray clouds in the sky. I thought it might rain and brought an umbrella with me, but luckily that hasn't happened. So I went to this venue a few years ago for when they had the award ceremony for the British Book Awards, and I was a judge in the novel category, and they haven't been able to have the ceremony live for a couple of years. So I think everybody's going to be quite excited to have an actual in-person party again, And while I was walking here from the station, I passed by this gorgeous man that was wearing a beautiful, lawn, elegant silver dress, and he had such a big smile on his face, and I'm just like, yes, this is why I love London.
Thank you, Lydia.
I just have to say, what an immense privilege and total pleasure it is to be stood here welcoming each and every one of you to the British Book Awards 2022.
Often British people, and we all know British people struggle to celebrate ourselves. It's just not our natural state, is it? Plus, this room is packed full of readers. These are people who weigh our words incredibly carefully. We understand the value of them. We do not garland ourselves in superlatives. It's vulgar.
This year's Author of the Year is quite simply one of the most successful authors ever. An expert storyteller, tackling issues such as addiction, infidelity, bereavement, domestic violence, family life, identity, depression, and, well, love.
Yeah.
And always. Sorry. That's right. I was going to say always.
Still got it.
Still got it together. Always with a warmth of heart and an abundance of will.
With over 30 years and 15 genre-defined novels, their writing has created, I guess you could say, a space for millions of readers who find joy and solace and light, dark and most of all, humour and hope in, here we go with the first hint, her novels.
Her works have sold upwards of 7.5 million copies in the UK, with more than 30 million sold internationally, which is an incredible testament to how devoted fans and readers all over the world are to her works.
We are absolutely delighted, kind of both professionally and personally actually, to announce that the British Book Awards Author of the Year 2022, in case you've forgotten, is the brilliant Marion Keyes!
This is so nice. Murky forces made this happen. Thank you very, very much. It's sort of like being present at my own funeral. It's so nice. Reviewers, thank you. My grudge list is far, far smaller now than it used to be. Almost invisible. Book bloggers, again, thank you for your generosity. Other authors, like people like to think that we're all at each other's throats and celebrating each other's downfalls. That hasn't been my experience at all, sadly. Other authors, I could count them as friends, quite frankly. People who've given me like quotes and lovely things. And my readers, it's an incredible thing for me to feel that I just write about these people and other people go, oh, that's me, or thank you. It is such a privilege to do this job, and I'm so grateful that I'm allowed to and that you've all made it possible.
This is our winner, quite simply a story that needs to be told. The fiction debut winner
is Open Water! Thank you, I think, to everyone who has kind of supported me on this journey. It was really weird to think of writing a book in like a really private space and emerging that out into the world. Thank you to my agent and my editor, who are both here, and my whole team, who's just been astounding for the past few years. Thank you to my mum, to my dad, to my family. Yeah, this is a lot. This is definitely a lot. But yeah, I'm just so grateful to everyone, booksellers, reviewers, people who've read it, who have each time you picked it up, have given the book a new life. And most of all, thank you to my best friend and to my partner Ez, who's not here tonight, but is the reason I wrote this book. Thank you.
So I'm here with Caleb Azumah Nelson, whose brilliant book, Open Water, has just won the debut novel category at the British Book Awards. So congratulations. How does it feel?
Thank you. I'm in this weird state of delirium. I'm kind of really excited and also very shocked still, but mostly excited.
And you shouldn't be too shocked, because you've had a number of awards now. It's like the Costa Book Award, you won the debut novel of the year category, and you've had a few other award nods. So yeah, it's been so wonderful to see the success of the book, and it being so embraced by so many readers and beloved by so many readers. And actually, one of the most endearing moments in the book, I think, is when the main character goes to meet the author Zadie Smith, and is a big fan of Zadie Smith, and was a big influence on that character. So I was wondering, how does it feel to be on the other side now? And have you met many fans that are, have been really inspired by your book? And yeah, what has that been like?
It's been really strange, I guess, to writing a novel, writing a book, writing anything is such a private act, and then to kind of bring it out into the world and have the work received in a way that reflects the energy I put into it is so special. There have been so many people who have reached out to me and expressed how the book has made them feel, and for me, to make someone feel anything is such a special and humbling feeling.
Yeah, it's so touching.
It's kind of like this thing of the bringing together of people. I think that's what books have always done for me. It's always given me a window into a world that I can never be privy to, even if someone is very similar to me. We all experience things differently, and so it's been so wonderful to have readers come to me and be like, this is how it's made me feel and this is why. It's special.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And another really powerful thing I think about your book is the choice of the narration. It's so artful how you utilize this like second person narrative to tell the story, and how you feel like simultaneously like inside the main character's head, but also see them at a distance, and it's so perfect for his character as a photographer. There's, you know, in photography you have that whole distance between the subject and the person taking the photograph. So I think it's so well suited to that. So I was wondering, how did you settle on that style of narrative? Did you begin writing it in first person or third person and then come to this second person, or did you begin with that speaking to you sort of voice?
I guess it was something I started with straight away. It felt really intentional that I make that choice in order to provide this narrative that felt as intimate as possible.
Mm.
You know, I really wanted the reader to feel, not to feel locked out or to feel like they would be given a narrative, but to feel like they were taking part in a narrative. That the reader could be both an audience member and also the protagonist. You could slide into the protagonist's shoes and really ask yourself the questions that are being asked within the narrative. And for me, it was just like, yeah, like how close can I bring you to these like thoughts and feelings that I've been thinking about, you know?
Yeah, that's really clever, because it does that you like, it embodies so many different sort of psyches, like simultaneously of you, the reader, you, the character. Since we're here at the British Book Awards, which is more an industry book awards, I was wondering how you felt about becoming, since the publication of Open Water a little over a year ago, becoming now a part of the book industry. Have you personally felt that's been like has that been a positive? Have you had positive experiences from that, negative experiences from that, and like how do you feel about the publishing industry in general and where it's going?
I think for me, my experience has been really wonderful because of the team that I have around me. Like the team at Viking and my agents are all just so brilliant, and they've always put me first, and I've always kind of like asked, what do you want to do here? Which I know is such like, for me, feels like such a fortunate thing to be able to say, which is like, yeah, it has felt like such a special time, and I've never at any point felt like I've been longing or lacking for something. But I also know that I as like a kind of, as a black writer, I'm like one of a few, and it's really wonderful to see like other black writers like coming up, but like I want more, you know?
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
want more and more and more. And yeah, like I think writing this novel and being bold and being experimental shows that like it's not necessarily a risk to publish this kind of fiction or any kind of fiction. It should be a norm, you know?
Yeah. And it's obviously connected with like such a wide audience, and of people that feel close to the book, that is close to their experience, or is outside of their experience, but is something that, you know, that they can completely understand and relate to and sympathize with. And,
yeah, for sure. Like I guess at the heart of this novel is love, and
yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
the kind of like, you know, for me that's always the source of intrigue. It's like, how do we show love to one another? How do we express that love to one another? That's what I'm always thinking about, and I'm glad it kind of made its way into the text in a way that people could resonate with.
Absolutely, yeah, it's one of the most beautiful parts of the book. So, what is coming up for you next? You have a novel coming out next year, right?
I do. I've got a novel called Small Worlds coming out next year, which is about a young jazz musician, Stephen, based in Southeast London, and kind of tracks a lot of firsts for him, like him falling in love for the first time and him moving away from home for the first time. That is really a novel about the communities that make us, and how we kind of again show love in those communities, and how we dream, I guess, like how we kind of like think and feel in the world, and how we dream and how we express that. Yeah, I think that's what I'm aiming towards anyway.
And is it also sort of roughly contemporary set, like Open Water?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it is the second in a very loose trilogy of novels that kind of concern art and expression, and where love like kind of sits within those spaces.
And is this Was this a story you sort of had in mind, or did you sort of tentatively have in mind this sort of trilogy when you first started writing Open Water, or soon after completing it? Because I know it's a lot of pressure for an author having their debut novel come out when there isn't the expectation around it, and now that you've had your novel out,
I think for me that Small Worlds, the idea began to appear just before I had handed in Open Water. Is it like the kind of final draft? I was away in Spain just in Jan 2020, so just before the world started falling apart, and I was editing.
Lucky to get away
right? And that was that was when the characters started coming into my mind, and it's been really wonderful actually to not feel like I needed to rush it out. It's been a nice process, an intense process, but a really wonderful process of going back to the page and thinking, you know, for me, it wasn't necessarily to make like a complete divergence, because I've already started walking down a path. It's just, how can I continue this walk? How can I kind of deepen this line of questioning and think a bit deeper and further about what I've already been asking, you know?
Yeah, working with a lot of the same questions that, Wow, that's great. It's really exciting. I'm looking forward to your new book. And just before we go, do you want to show off your awards to the camera? Since really exciting. Thank you so much for speaking with me. This is really lovely. And enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much.
For inviting me to share this special evening and to present the award for Page Turner of the Year. It's Small Worlds. I want to keep it short because I want you all to love me. So I'm going to very quickly thank my lovely agent Judith Murray, my brilliant editor Federico Antonino, and publicity genius Virginia Wollstonecraft, and the whole team at Orion, who are absolute gods. I love them all. Thank you so much. You've really just made my year and the last 30 years too. Thank you.
This winner is a book you read and then want to press into everyone else's hands, taking the Fiction Book of the Year trophy. It's Sorrow and Bliss.
Goodness, thank you so much for this award. I'm so surprised and so grateful to the Nibbies and to all of the booksellers who stacked it on their shelves and handed it to customers, and to all of the readers and to all of the authors who've inspired my work, many of whom I'm sure are in that room right now. Well, I'm 12,000 miles away in Australia, and I've never regretted it more keenly than I do today. Thank you so much.
And from that shortlist, the judges were awed by their winner's content and impact, calling it a brilliant, powerful and moving journey of discovery and praising its sensitively handled launch. Read that winner, please.
So, Book of the Year non-fiction narrative is Empire Lab by
Thank you. The last time I was on the stage, I was up for Young Journalist of the Year in 1856. Actually, I then proceeded to be a business reporter, and this is the biggest banqueting hall in Europe, I think, as you pointed out. And I came here, I think, about 40 times in my 20s. I once came here 2 nights in a row, and Prince Andrew made the same speech with the same joke. So you're doing better than him. Thank you for the award. I'm not going to be able to read my notes. For me, Empire Land is more than a books campaign, and this prize will really help in terms of pointing out to people that we need to understand pluralism, to understand ourselves. I'd like to thank my agents, Sarah and Jessica, for believing me, and also getting me the space to write, which is a very difficult thing when you're getting thousands of death threats, which is what I get. Thanks to my editor, Mary Mount, everyone at Viking and Penguin. They not only published the book, but they sent 15,000 copies of the book to schools around Britain, which is an amazing thing to do. I'd like to thank my parents It's mainly because I think it's important at times like this to remember where you came from. And, you know, when my father came as an immigrant, you know, he arrived and he was totally illiterate. You know, he couldn't speak English. And when I arrived at school, I couldn't speak English either. And if I'm here today, it's because he took me to the library every 2 weeks. And this is what immigrants do around the world. They work hard, they enhance the culture and the economies of the countries that they end up in. So
now we are going to be talking about the first trade awards for the Independent Bookshop of the Year, sponsored by Ghana. Yes! The Independent Bookshop of the Year is The Bookery.
I've got a post-it note. I'll keep it short. It's such a privilege to be receiving this award on behalf of the Bookery Credison. It feels like a real recognition of the work that we do in rural Devon, getting books into the hands of hundreds of children and working with isolated and elderly and championing books and authors. Huge thanks to our patrons, everyone who's worked with us, supported us and believed in us. Thank you.
Wow, okay. Thank you. So thank you first to the bookseller, and to the BBC, and to the judges for this award. I'm delighted. Detransition Baby is a book that means a lot to so many people, and it has been one of the most important, most exciting, most groundbreaking books I've ever worked on, and it's been a complete joy seeing it reach all kinds of readers and kickstarting truly culture-shifting conversations. And I couldn't be more proud to play a small part in its journey.
And that goes to one of the 12 brilliant books that we have already celebrated this evening. This is a big one, as it's crowned overall book of the year. Now, on screen are all the contenders for this coveted title, Book of the Year. 12 superb contenders, but only one can be the overall Book of the Year. And here, the judges debated long and hard, and eventually they arrived at their choice of winner. Please reveal the British Book Awards overall Book of the Year.
It's a big one. This year's winner was one of the best pieces of publishing from 2021. It truly broke the mold and is thoroughly deserved of the accolade overall Book of the Year. It's of course Marcus Rashford.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm sorry that my son couldn't be present this evening, but we've come to represent him. And it's better than that, Lord. On behalf of the team, this would not have been possible for the project that's been done throughout the team. Thank you very much, and thank you, and we do apologise for Marcus that couldn't be here today. It's a big award to collect. Thank you so much.
Wherever you are, we hope you're carrying on your celebration. So Reese and Andy, thank you all, and good night.
So that is the end of the British Book Awards. I'm exiting here through the British Book Awards tunnel. It was a fun, glitzy evening. Let me know what you think of the winners, and if you've read any of them or if you're interested in reading any of them now. Thank you for following me this evening, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.